We mostly talked about innovation in higher education, really what the trends are for the country. And what we found is there was a lot of common agreement between the faculty and the presidents on really how higher education should look in the future. But there were some issues where both groups felt that faculty should be more involved in decision making and really deciding what the future looks like, but both agreed that wasn't the case now, and we've got to get to the point where we can get faculty more engaged and more involved in building our higher education system for the future.
What does the education of the future look like?
That was the big question. It looks like it's going to be a lot more technology-based, but there was definitely agreement among both the faculty and the presidents that it's not going to be all online, that they really were comfortable with these hybrid courses where you actually have a combination of technology and classroom instruction, but certainly nothing that's totally non-involved with students interacting with faculty. I wanted to share with you a nice survey that the Chronicle of Higher Education did on really what the thoughts of faculty and staff are in this country during this interesting time in the history of higher education in America. And it really is within that context, things we've experienced here, the economy, less public subsidy, rising tuition, new technology, the rise of the for-profits, tensions on campus related to this with a lot more no confidence votes on presidents in this last year than any other year. And then new federal rating systems proposed to promote access, completion, and innovation. So what are we thinking about on the campus? And the survey really asked some questions about value. Is post-secondary credential worth it? In which direction is higher education heading? Innovation, is it needed? Who should be driving it? How fast? And is it pervasive? And then focus. What are we focusing on? What should we be focusing on? And then new ideas. Of all the innovations out there, which holds the most promise? And the first one they asked about is higher education a good value? And really, if you look at the data, in 2001 it took less than 25% of an average family's income to pay for a typical tuition bill in the United States. Well, in 2012, that number is about 40%. So there is a great spike in the cost to the individual as the state's subsidies have declined throughout the country. Now, 50% of the presidents and a third of the faculty still believe that American higher education provides a very good or excellent value. And that is supported by others. Anthony Carnevale at the Georgetown Center on Education and the Workforce really talks about even still over a lifetime, every additional credential does help you in long-term lifetime earning. Direction in absolute terms. Do we believe that the overall direction for higher education in the United States is going in the right direction? A third of the faculty say yes, 2/3 of the presidents say yes. So there is some differences by type of faculty. Faculty members in the humanities and those at the public research universities and those that have been teaching for a long time are most uncertain about the future. And then the faculty teaching in STEM fields are most optimistic about the future. And then they ask some questions about really how do we as America fit into the global perspective for higher education. And both the faculty and presidents believe that our ranking is likely to decline in the next few years, but the presidents just see a slight decline from a very strong position, and the faculty see it to be a more severe decline. So the most pessimistic predictions again came from the faculty at research universities and the baccalaureate colleges. And really there's a question about which direction. The sectors of higher education most at risk in the next 10 years. When you look at all the data, both faculty and presidents see public four-year colleges and private nonprofit colleges the most at risk, with both groups being concerned with the future of their institutions on their own. And I split out their responses, and what you'll see is a third of the four-year public presidents believe that their sector is at risk, whereas almost 60% of the faculty find some risk there. And then, of course, the profits is split in the other direction, with the presidents more concerned and the nonprofit college faculty not as concerned. And, of course, there's more part-time on the nonprofit side, so perhaps they're not as invested in that. And this really relates to what Clayton Christensen said, and I've mentioned this before about his prognostication on the future, but that he said imagine half of the colleges in the U.S. going out of business in the future because of enormous financial pressures and not understanding a new paradigm for the future. Innovation, Alan Kay is a great computer scientist, and he says the best way to predict the future is invent it. So who should be inventing the future of higher education? How fast and pervasive should it be? And what innovations hold the most promise and which ones do not? Innovation is really a conflict between what is, the traditions, the processes that have worked over the generations, and addressing the crisis of the day. And of course, it's the declining state support, federal deficits, falling household income, and it produces a higher education of a different color. Most presidents and faculty members think only a moderate amount of change is needed. They consider it evolutionary change, but there are 10% among that group that believe that massive disruption is needed. And then there's a question about how fast and pervasive. Half the presidents say it should be pervasive, and about half of the faculty say that it should be, say change is too slow or far too slow. But then if you follow up on that question, you sort of see that as change occurs fairly fast, there becomes this sort of retrenchment back into maybe we shouldn't have gone as fast as we have. And this is Teresa Sullivan. She was president of the University of Virginia. She wasn't doing change fast enough. The Board of Trustees let her go, and then of course the faculty came in and said, no, not so fast. We would like her back, and they actually did give her back. So there's this conflict between that's happening. So who currently drives innovation and who should drive faculty? Now the faculty basically highlighted these things. They said that currently drive change about 90%. Or actually, let's do that again. I put these lines in here because the chart's kind of hard to read. Faculty said about 40% currently drive change, but they said that actually 90% they should be the drivers of change. So they believe that faculty should be drivers of change. And then they indicated that politicians currently are the current drive change agents, but they don't believe that they should drive change in the future. Now let's sort of see what the presidents say. And in the presidents, again, they say that only 10% believe that faculty currently drive change, but they also believe 80% compared to 90% believe that faculty should be change agents. Also, they identified at the same amount that politicians are currently driving change and that it should not be so. So they believe that faculty should be the drivers of innovation. And then the question is, what are we currently focusing on? We're currently focusing on cutting costs, technology, and online tools. What we should be focusing on, they say, is teaching and learning. That's the big question. And I think the question related to that question is, are the two ideas diametrically opposed? And I think to some extent, maybe not. The only time you have change is when there's the mother of necessity occurs, it makes it happen. And this is the situation here. Thinking about the approaches that are out there that people talked about a lot over the last couple of years, and one is MOOCs. Faculty, 65% found that to be a negative influence on education, and 60% of the presidents thought the same. Both agreed that hybrid courses have the greatest promise, both face-to-face and online components to hybrid courses, as do the presidents. So they both agree on the general constructs of how our education should look in the future. And then there's questions about these things. Hybrid courses involving both online and in-person instruction. You can sort of see that faculty and presidents agree at the same amount. In the second area, the question is, the wealthy in the future will get an immersive in-person experience at elite colleges while everyone else gets a lower cost, largely online experience. And you'll see that there's slightly different agreement there, with 62% of the faculty believing that, with only 41% of the presidents agreeing. So faculty are much more sure about a growing economic divide in higher education. The third one they all both agree on. Degrees should be based on competencies rather than seat time, and common there. And then another slight disagreement, actually fairly big. Courses taken fully online are of equal quality to those in the classroom. 2/3 of the faculty say absolutely not. Almost 2/3 of the presidents say absolutely yes. So there's much more skeptical on that. As far as moving toward hybrid or any type of format, both agree that there isn't enough support for getting the campuses and the faculty there. So the overreaching conclusions of this study was that there is a lot of agreement among those in higher education that there is some interest in being a lot of change, but should it be revolutionary or evolutionary. And both believe that faculty should be greater players. What I hope to do in the next couple months is sort of assess how we're doing it here and what we can do to identify how to get folks involved in that. So which change is needed? Are improvements in teaching and learning diametrically opposed to the bottom line? And how do we engage faculty so that they can become the ones driving change? So that's what I think our journey for the next couple of years will be, is moving our institutions into the future. We hope to do with this survey is share what the national results are, and then actually ask the faculty in this state what the ways that they can become participants in involving in innovation. You know, what can we do to make sure that the processes and the systems and the governance structures allow for there to be faculty input into making the big decisions to move the state forward?